It's as if Democratic leaders in America have no interest in supporting the Constitution, the Second Amendment, or anything else regarding actual values of the Founding Fathers. They're constantly trying to whittle away at the fabric that seems to hold this country together, all because of emotions and fear rather than logic and factual information. In that same vein, the Biden-Harris plan for guns is shocking, scary, and altogether a pile of threats against liberty. And we're going to sniff it out, guys. Vertex makes some of the best EDC bags and gear around. Whether you're looking for a backpack, a messenger bag, or maybe something for your pup. They've got features like a rapid access weapon compartment, padded backing, a hot pull tab for quick access to the main compartment, and much, much more. Oh, and did I mention their jeans make my legs look better? Seriously, I can do so many high kicks in these. And guys, if you want to get a huge discount, head over to Vertex, that's VERTX.com, and use our code TGC to get a whopping 25% off everything. Go do it. Quite frankly, I keep forgetting to make this video about as much as Biden forgets where he is, but I think it's really important to give you my thoughts on this. This is going to be a very substantial video, so strap yourself in, here we go. On the Biden campaign website, under the gun safety section, yeah, gun safety, that's what they're calling it, is the info we're referencing here. The opening paragraph says, Joe Biden knows that gun violence is a public health epidemic. That's the first line. The manipulation starts immediately. First off, this sentence is asserting that Biden has special knowledge about anything. It's also attempting to persuade the uninitiated that there is a health epidemic stemming from firearms as a whole. Not only that, but why would something regarding a tool be called a health epidemic? I mean, we aren't calling car accidents a health crisis, right? Let's also be aware that this guy says to fire 2 blasts from a shotgun into the air to ward off criminals. Yeah, that same guy is telling you this is an epidemic. Using their own data presented of 40,000 people dying from firearms injuries, we're presented with a CDC report about mortality in 2017. It shows the top 15 causes of death, and firearm-related injuries is not on that list, but somehow it's an epidemic. If we break down that 40,000 number, nearly 24,000 are suicide. But let's pretend this is a gun issue and not a mental health issue, right? Let's just sweep that under the rug because it's hard. Then, after that, homicide, which I must add is already illegal, makes up about 14,500 of those deaths. The remainder comes from unintentional, undetermined, or legal intervention/war deaths. None of that data actually points to the gun being the underlying factor for these deaths. Mental health, rampant poverty in cities, and a piss-poor education system in our country are more likely the cause of those deaths than guns are. And that is just the beginning here. I don't want to spend this entire video unraveling this like fake news they present as evidence for their grandstanding or charlatan-like behavior, so we're going to jump into the bullet points here. After it presents Biden as a leader or an expert on what they call gun violence, they start covering the actual plan. Point 1 is to hold gun manufacturers accountable. They plan to repeal PLCAA, or the PLCAA, which is Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which protects gun manufacturers from legal actions based on the misuse of their guns. We covered that in a legal brief episode. So, for example, if someone murders another person with a Smith & Wesson, they couldn't be held liable for the misuse of that gun. They want to repeal that. The sad part is that law has already been eroded by activist judges. Imagine if Ford was held liable for the misuse of their vehicles. Yeah, it's that crazy. The next point is to get weapons of war off our streets. This includes the ban of the manufacture of what they call assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. They reference federal law preventing hunters from hunting migratory birds with more than 3 rounds in the gun. They claim that this means ducks have more protection than children, except it's already illegal to hunt children entirely. I looked it up. It's definitely not legal. But hunting birds is legal, so I think what they said here isn't true. It also says Biden will enact legislation to ban what they call assault weapons. I think it's interesting that it says enact and not introduce. This is based on the assumption that they will make it through the legislature. It also says the bans will prevent manufacturers from circumventing the law by making minor changes that don't limit the weapon's lethality. as if banning pistol braces or bullet buttons will somehow magically fix the downward spiral of mental health in our country. The next section says they want to regulate the possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act. Oh boy. For those that aren't aware, things like machine guns, silencers, and short-barreled rifles, among other things, are under the NFA and require a $200 tax stamp to register them. If we extrapolate based on the information we covered recently about how many of what they call assault weapons exist, that would mean nearly $3 billion in tax revenue, assuming they all got registered, which they absolutely would not. This section is one that has me the most concerned, I think. I'm not sure how easy it would be for them to amend the NFA, but it's concerning for sure. Continuing along, the next section says that they want to buy back assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in our communities. This term buy back is a fallacy to begin with because you can't buy back something you never owned, and on top of that, the US government couldn't pass a background check if they tried. They say register or sell them to the government. That sounds like an attempt at disarmament, which is exactly why we would need the guns. But what do I know, right? They also say they want to reduce stockpiling of weapons. This basically means they want to limit how many guns you can buy per month to one. A right delayed is a right denied. This is not going to fly, if you ask me. The lunacy continues. They want to keep guns out of dangerous hands, which by itself is not a bad statement. I don't think it's unreasonable to want to keep guns out of dangerous hands, except when the definition of dangerous is changed, and the methods for determining that is a blatant stomp on freedom. How do they want to pull this off? You guys will love this part. They want to require background checks for all gun sales. Going farther into it, they say that they will close the gun show and online sales loophole, as if somewhere in the US people are buying guns online and they aren't being sent to a dealer. That just doesn't happen. The only evidence to the contrary is based on screw-ups from shipping companies. That's the only way that would end up in the wrong spot. Not only that, but the so-called gun show loophole has never been proven as a source of a significant number of guns from crimes. That would indicate that the fear of the gun show loophole is completely unfounded. Digging deeper into this section reveals loopholes I've never heard of, like the boyfriend loophole, whatever the hell that is. I suspect that is a straw purchase issue, which is, again, already illegal. They also point out that they want to reinstate the power to the Social Security Administration to screw with people's gun rights. And yet, more loopholes that don't exist are being mentioned here. The hate crime loophole, that's a new one for me. They say they want to stop this by enacting legislation that would prohibit an individual convicted of a misdemeanor hate crime or received enhanced sentence for a misdemeanor because of a hate crime or bias in its commission from purchasing a firearm. That's their wording. I won't get into how much BS I think the term hate crime creates. Beyond that, they want to close another new loophole called the Charleston loophole. This allows people to complete a firearms purchase if their background check is not completed within 3 business days. They want to extend that time frame to 10 days. What's interesting about that is they don't want to fix the government ineptitude, but rather punish a law-abiding citizen instead. But wait, there's even more. They want to close the Fugitive from Justice loophole. Okay, seriously, you can't just pick a term and then add loophole to the end of it. This is really silly. They say this one is because of the Trump administration deleting records of 500,000 fugitives from justice who are prohibited from buying guns from the background check system. The link to their evidence actually goes to a 2017 article on Giffords Law Center website. That's very anti-gun. They say the FBI purged 500,000 records, and they make it sound like they did this willy-nilly, but what actually happened is that they narrowed the definition of fugitive from justice, and 500,000 people regained a little bit of freedom because of it. Moving forward still, yes, there's a lot more to cover here. You guys good? Take a breath. Okay, let's go. They also want to end the online sale of firearms and ammunition. Their source for this goes to March for Our Lives, which is a very anti-gun group that stands on the fear of an inanimate object being more important than the rights of millions. The next part says they want to create an effective program to ensure individuals who become prohibited from possessing firearms relinquish their weapons. According to this section, we lack the tools necessary to ensure when someone becomes newly prohibited that they relinquish their guns. The plan here is to direct ATF and FBI to head this up. What's interesting to me is that this requires them knowing when someone possesses guns in the first place. I bet this would be a stepping stone to a required National Registry of Firearms. I can just see it coming. Moving along, this next section just pisses me off. They want to incentivize extreme risk or red flag laws. For those living under a rock, these horrific laws enable family members or law enforcement officials to tell on you when you are in times of crisis and have you stripped of your right to bear arms. They want to pay states money to adopt these laws. That right there is just messed up. The right way to handle this is through a pro-freedom option like Hold My Guns, but that's a topic for another video. They also want to incentivize gun licensing programs on a state level. This would require folks to get a license prior to purchasing a gun. So basically, you would need a license to exercise a constitutional right. Yes, this is all of this stuff is what they say they want to do. And rounding out this section, they want to adequately fund the background check system. This again would pay states money for doing what they're already supposed to be doing with reporting information to the background check system. There's another subsection titled Addressing the Deadly Combination of Guns and Domestic Violence. Among that section is a bunch of language laced with slander against the Second Amendment. They also say they want to push through the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2019, which is a giant can of worms that I just am not going to open here. It would take forever to explain all of that. In fact, I'm going to let you go to the site to read this part of it on your own because there's just way more stuff that we need to cover here that's more focused on guns. The next section, beyond that, says they want to make sure that firearms owners take on the responsibility of ensuring their weapons are used safely. What does this mean? They want to put America on the path to ensuring 100% of firearms sold in America are smart guns. Nothing could go wrong there. Nothing at all. They also want to hold adults accountable for giving minors access to firearms. This section is screwed up because they want to hold people liable of directly or negligently giving a minor access to a firearm, regardless of whether or not the minor actually gains possession of the firearm. How would one assess a situation like that unless they were given control of how guns are stored in the home and then access to the home? Oh, that's what they say next. They want to control how you store your guns. That means they want to put steps in the way of you defending yourself at home. The train to dumb land keeps rolling with empowering law enforcement to effectively enforce our gun laws. In this section, they say they're highly prioritizing prosecution of straw purchasers, which is hilarious because they barely prosecute anyone for this currently, even though it's definitely illegal. They also want to notify law enforcement when a potential firearms purchase fails a background check. So if you get denied, regardless of whether or not it's a legit denial, the cops could come bother you. They also want to require firearms owners to report if their weapon is lost or stolen, and it keeps going and going. They want to stop what they call ghost guns. So this would somehow legislate what you print on your 3D printer at home and control guns that aren't legally guns, even though it's completely within your rights to make your own guns for personal use. They want you to pass a background check in order to download the code to print a gun or buy an 80% kit. They want to reform, fund, and empower the DOJ to enforce our gun laws. This means they want to restructure the ATF and give them tons of money to harass gun shops and bully people that get in their way. And rounding out this section, they want the ATF to issue an annual report on firearms trafficking. I guess that one is hilarious because it would need to include the ATF sending guns to the cartels, to be accurate. What's up with that, ATF? We'll skip over the section that talks about urban gun violence interventions in order to keep this video a little bit shorter and cover the last three keys here. The plan says they want to dedicate the brightest scientific minds to solving the gun violence public health epidemic. That statement is predicated on the fact that science could solve this supposed epidemic that doesn't actually exist. They basically go on to say that they will use federal funding to find out how to enact more gun control. Your tax dollars for gun control. Beyond that, they want to prohibit the use of federal funding to arm and train teachers to discharge firearms. So they don't want teachers to be able to defend themselves or the class full of kids. And rounding us out, they want to address the epidemic. Man, they're just laying that word on here. They want to address the epidemic of suicides by firearms. They claim that this could be impacted by policies like red flag laws or storage requirements. So again, blame the inanimate object instead of trying to address the actual mental health struggles that people face every day. Can we just push therapists instead of gun control? That'd be rad. Okay, let's take a deep breath together. Woosah. Woosah. I know that was an absolute mountain of stuff to digest. Now, a lot of this stuff would require serious coordination from the legislative and executive branches of our government, and that is not often something that happens. Our government moves like a turtle. Not only that, but some of these suggestions have potential to cause incredible amounts of backlash. The thing that concerns me most of all this is the threat of using executive action to push this through. Kamala Harris has already suggested that this will happen, so I believe it could be a matter of time before this is just looking us right in the face. I have to hear your thoughts on this, guys. This is easily one of the biggest threats we faced as gun owners in a long time, and I want to know what is on your mind and which parts of these points that I've covered, there's a lot that I've covered, which points that have you most concerned. That being said, please sound off in the comments section below with your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video and you think we've earned it, please hit the like button. If you want to see more gun news videos every single week, get subscribed. It'd be great to have you back. And as always, thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon.